Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to do orbital supply drops on Extinction. Just before we start, I'm going to put all the timestamps in the description, so if there's only a certain thing you want to watch, feel free to go down and check that out and you can skip straight to that bit. Just so we're clear for the rest of this video, OSD stands for Orbital Supply Drop. My apologies that this video is a week late, guys. This was meant to be out literally 7 days ago, but let me tell you now, nothing has made me want to quit this game more than trying to do a purple OSD on the settings that I was on. We'll get to that in a minute and you can see why. More importantly, as always, thank you so much for your continued support, as well as all your nice comments. It's amazing. Anyway, we've got a lot of information to get through and not a lot of time, so let's get into the video. OSDs will spawn throughout the wastelands part of Extinction, so that's not in the sanctuary or any of the biomes. You can hear and see when they're coming in because they'll fall like a meteorite from space. So there'll be flaming coming in and there'll be a big cloud of smoke behind them, and you'll also hear a distinct noise so you'll know when it's coming in. If you hear an OSD coming in, even if you're not planning to do it right now, it's good to look up in the sky and look around you and try and work out where it's going to land. Partly because people will be farming these, so we're going to check them out and see what colour it is. So wherever the OSD lands has a potential to be a high traffic area. But also, and probably more importantly, although there's a slim chance of it landing on you, if it does hit you, it will kill you and anything you're on or anything in close range around you. And although your chances of getting hit by a falling meteorite are slim, there's still a chance. So, we've already established that they spawn in the wastelands. Now, once you're in the wastelands, you'll have an increased food and drink consumption. So before we even think about completing an OSD, we need to make sure that we can be prepared to have the food and water that we'll need. Now by this I mean I wouldn't bring water skins, I would definitely wait until I have something like canteens, and you also want to bring food that isn't going to spoil quickly, whether that be cooked meat or a load of berries, or the berries won't heal you health, as well as your food and water. I would also make sure that you definitely have a set of flak armor to do this with. Even primitive flak will be fine for some of them, but the better armor you have is going to make things easier. We could also need more sets of armor, but we'll get into that in a minute. On top of that, I would bring blood packs at a minimum, but if you have medical brews that would be a lot better. I always bring a good weapon with me just in case the dino I'm on dies or anything like that, and I would also bring a whip with me. We'll get into that in a minute and you'll know why. So we spoke about what OSDs are, now let's talk about the different types you can get and the differences between them. So they come in 4 different colours and each colour corresponds to the difficulty of it. So blue is considered easy, yellow is medium, red is hard, and purple is legendary. Now, think of my past experiences, legendary must translate in some other language to pretty much impossible unless you got some super imprinted dinos. We're going to have a quick talk about the rewards they give. That way, hopefully you can kind of gauge what level you want to be taken on. So, blue's obviously the easiest, you're going to have the worst rewards. But that definitely doesn't mean they're not worth doing. The rewards definitely have the potential to be great for the difficulty of the blue OSD. Next up we have yellow, and you'll see on there that a lot of the things are the same, but it obviously has a chance to give you a better one of them items. So for example, instead of getting 120% damage shotgun, you might get 150% damage shotgun. You'll notice that the easy OSDs will give you flak armor, whereas the medium ones will start to give you riot armor. So the hard's very much the same, although now you'll start to get tech armor. You'll also start getting better saddles like Managama saddles. You also notice that the structures that they can give you will be better now, so they'll be metal instead of stone. And you can now also start getting mechs. Then for the legendary one, we'll get all the above, but better versions of it. Or if it's a resource like element, you'll get more of it. So late game is obviously more beneficial to do the hardest ones you can, but it's definitely worth giving all of them a go. And as you can see, there's still some good loot to be got from the easy ones. So the way these things work, you're going to have 5 waves of corrupt dinos coming at you, and your objective is to defend the OSD. The OSD will have a different amount of hit points depending on what difficulty you're doing, but the dinos will obviously be harder and higher levels. Now it's important to tell you that these OSDs will have the same kind of structure damage as wood will have, and you can do damage yourself against them. The only things that won't do damage is a Managama's Ice Breath, a Poison Wyvern's Poison Balls, and a Lightning Wyvern's Lightning. And it's important to keep that in mind because they're great options. We'll get into more options in a minute, but it's definitely good to keep them in mind. So for the blue drops, the levels range normally between about 1 and 30. The levels on the yellow are anywhere between about 100 to 200. Reds are about 200 to 300. And purple can have levels 400 all the way up to 800. So these drops can get hard real quick. So to start a drop, you want to walk up to it. After you've been stood by it for a few seconds, it's going to make some funny noises at you. Then when you get close to it and look at it, it will start giving you some information. So it's going to tell you the hit points of the OSD, how much it has left, as well as what wave you're on and how many of the hostiles are remaining on each wave. So let's talk about each of these drops and how we can tackle them. I'll do you a run of the blue drop. Now really, if you've got a couple of sets of flak, a decent amount of blood packs, med brews, and a decent weapon like a good shotgun, honestly you could do a blue on foot if you're careful and if you're smart about it. If not, any decent tame will do it, maybe like a Thylacoleo, a dire bear, a few wolves, anything a decent level like that kind of dino or up, you can do a blue drop easy. So on a blue drop, it's going to feel like these guys are coming at you pretty slow. And like I say, our objective is just to try and keep them away from the orbital supply drop. So I'd sit around the orbital supply drop until it starts, and then as soon as I see the first one coming, go for that and just try and kill them before they get to you. So you need to be careful because on these blue drops, a lot of the things you need to kill are dilos, and they're very small, they can't get over rough terrain. So sometimes as they're coming for you, they can get stuck behind rocks and trees and things. Now you can obviously move away from the OSD a little bit, but you need to be careful not to go too far, because if you venture too far while you're looking for these guys, it will think you've left and cancel the OSD, and you don't want that. So if you think you've killed everything going for the drop, and it still says like 1 or 2 hostiles remaining, I'd travel out a little bit, maybe 20 meters, go into K mode and just be looking around rocks and things, and if I can't see anything past that, then if you just stand by the drop, eventually it will kind of reset, and it will either put them closer, or it will just put you into the next round. So remember, as these waves go on, it's going to get harder, the dinos are going to get stronger, and there's going to be more of them. Once you've eventually completed the OSD, you'll know about it because it will tell you in big letters on the screen, and it will make some cool music. But anyway, then you can go up to the OSD, press E on it, and it will say eject items. This is when all your juicy loot comes out. Now, you need to be careful, because if you're on a PvP server, other people might be watching you and they might be thinking, oh, look at all this juicy loot coming out. So this is when people might strike to attack you or just try and run in and steal your loot. So you need to be careful about this, keep your wits about you, and be quick. Now remember, a lot of these things can be very heavy, so it's good to have a good weight dino with you so that you can just load it straight onto that and get out. A lot of people use gas bags for this. If not, you can use something like an RG. But then again, if I was looking to do this solo, I'd probably want something a little bit quicker than an RG, just in case people are waiting for you to try and kill you and take your loot. This is when your whip's going to come in handy, because you can equip your whip, run round and just whip up all the items, and that's going to be the quickest way you can get it, so you can get out quick. So when compared to a blue drop, a yellow drop is a lot harder. A blue drop is more like a beginner's kind of level. A yellow drop, however, is a lot less forgiving. So for this, we're going to want a lot stronger dino. Now, this can definitely be done on a very good level Managama or a good leveled Lightning Wyvern, but they're going to have to be a good level with a good amount of stamina and good melee damage to do this. Now is probably a good time to say, if you have a good level Giga, just use that. A good Giga for a yellow drop will be a walk in the park. Their only downfall is that if you're solo, you can only really defend one side, so it's difficult to defend the drop from every angle. The drop is going to take some damage, but a yellow drop has 50,000 health, it can take some damage. But this wouldn't really be a guide if I just said get a Giga and do it on that. So we're trying to look at different ways we can do this, because not everyone has a Giga. You can always use a good level Rex, or Therizino if you've got a better leveled one. And remember, you can always bring one to ride, and then bring a mate boosted one, and just set it on aggressive near the drop, so that can kind of defend one side. Remember to also bring a good saddle, and if you've only got one good saddle, probably put it on the one you're not riding, because it could get swarmed, and it has the potential to die. Sometimes you can also get lucky and the orbital supply drop could be near a big structure like a big rock. If that's the case, you could bring something like a Velonosaur along, set it to aggressive and on turret mode on top of this rock so that it can't be hit by other things. That will then start attacking things and breaking down their health before it gets to the drop. A Velonosaur's spikes that it shoots will also ground air dinos as well. So this will ground the Pteranodons on these lower levels, and as you get to the higher levels with the Wyverns, a good Velonosaur will ground it so that you can chomp it once it's on the floor. The very first thing you're going to notice when you start a yellow drop is that a big honeycomb comes around it. That is its shield. So this shield will only have a certain amount of hit points like the OSD, but it will help protect it because the corrupt dinos will have to go through that before they can get to the OSD. Personally, if I've got a good dino, I just disable this. You can do this by going up to the OSD and clicking disable. I only do it for the yellow drops. On the reds and purples, it can really help for the first wave. But if you got a good dino, sometimes on a yellow, it can just get in the way. But that's entirely up to you. Maybe if it's your first go, leave it on so that it gives you a little bit more leniency, and it's just going to help you out a little bit. On yellow drops, they can also spawn Arthropluras, and this is why I said bring a spare set of flak. If you didn't know, Arthropluras can spit at you, and if that hits you directly, it will ruin armor, absolutely ruin it. On top of that, Alpha Pleuras are one of the most hated things on these OSDs, because if you're chomping it with a land dino at close range, it will hit back a bit of damage that you're doing to it back onto your dino. So let's just say we've got a Rex that's leveled massively in melee damage but hasn't got a lot of health. If there's 10 Alpha Pleuras around this drop and you're trying to bite into all of them, it can easily kill your Rex really quick, so you need to be really careful with this. The best way to tackle them if you haven't got a lot of health is to bring a good weapon along with you, like a shotgun or a comp bow, and then try and take the Alpha Pleuras out of that. But you need to be careful if you're going to dismount from your tame. These corrupt dinos seem to really like attacking the OSD and then all of a sudden going for you, so you need to be very careful with this. You might also notice that I'm using spikes a lot here. It's actually often better if you spread them out more than I have, because corrupt dinos can deal damage to these structures, so they'll be attracted to them. So I find if you're new to this, it will just send some dinos off to attack these instead of going straight for the OSD, and it just helps to break up the big waves of dinos a bit. So it's not a necessity, but it can definitely help if you're new to this. I'm going to let this drop run all the way through to the end, just so you can see how I do it. If you don't want to watch it all and you want to move on to the red, just remember all the timestamps in the description, so you can move straight onto the red now if you want to. So for the red drop, I've done some experimenting, and what I've been trying out is what dinos I can use that aren't imprinted and only have primitive saddles. So I know some people don't have massively imprinted dinos, I know people don't have good saddles. So I'm trying to do this as like the bare minimum you can do these with. So what I have here is a max level tamed Giga and 2 max level tamed Rexes, and as you'll see in a minute, I just about completed it with this. I did again put spikes down all around me, but doing this kind of shot me in the foot a bit because I kept on running over it and it kept on injuring me. So this was not a good idea. If you put the spikes further away, and that will break some of the dinos up before they get to you. But at this level, the dinos do a lot of damage to your spikes, so yeah, it's not the best thing. So with the approach of this, I thought I'll just try and keep the Rexes as close to me as possible to start with and just see how it goes. And all these waves are pretty similar at the moment until you start to get wyverns. I feel like the Gigas are the best for the wyverns because the Gigas are tall, so you can just look up and just try and chomp the wyvern as it's going past. It won't have a lot of health, so it will kill them off pretty quick. You do need to try and take them out ASAP though, because their fire breath will start seriously damaging your dinos. Luckily with the red drop, a lot of the dinos that it spawns are Spinos, and although Spinos are strong, they don't have a lot of health, so you can take them out really quick. Trikes will also get taken out with just a couple of bites from a Giga. Rexes have a lot of health, but as long as you keep moving back and chomping with the Giga, they can't bite you, so it's okay. The biggest issue I've found with red drops, believe it or not, is Stegos, because Stegos will have a bit of damage reduction anyway. Plus, if there's more than one of them, they'll have even more damage reduction. They also hit hard, and they have a big hitbox when they hit, so it's difficult to chomp them without them hitting you back. Remember, if you're on a PvP server, more often than not, the most damage an Orbital Supply Drop will take will be from you. That's why you need to try and keep the corrupt dinos distracted and kill them or grab their attention before they get to the OSD so they don't get too close to it. And if they do make it to the OSD, try not to stand right on top of it chomping, because that's just going to damage the OSD. Instead, I normally stand back, go around the edge of the OSD and try and chomp the tails of the dinos that are attacking it. That way most of the time you'll just damage the dinos and not the OSD if you're careful. It's at this kind of level that I'd make sure that you got your whistles on point for your dinos, so you want to know what your quick whistle is for them to follow you, to unfollow you, and to switch them between passive, neutral and aggressive. To start with, I put both my Rexes on aggressive, but it's easy for them to get carried away and start to venture off. Then they can easily get overrun, so you need to know when to call them back, because you may also need a bit of defending as well. Whenever you've got a bit of downtime while there's no dinos coming, I would always try and heal up my tames, because even though like after round 2 you might be doing good, you might not have lost a lot of health, you can very quickly get overrun and you can take a lot of damage really quickly. So it's always best to try and keep your health topped up. You could also throw out a Daedon in between rounds, but when you're doing this solo, it gets a bit risky dismounting from your tame. And remember, on the red OSDs you have Spinos and Wyverns, they're both very fast, so you need to be very careful if you're going to do this. In the later rounds of the red drops is when things will start to get a bit different, because they can spawn enraged Triceratops. Now it's easy to spot one of these because it will be like a tech trike out of Genesis. When you see one of these guys, you need to make these your priority to take out. Let me tell you why. First, these guys are going to hit hard, but much more importantly, they will massively boost the damage output of all the corrupt dinos around them. It will also massively reduce the damage that they take. So if you start to get overrun and there's one of these around, things can quickly go from good to bad. Once the enraged trikes are taken out, you can continue as normal, just make sure you prioritize them. Again, I'll let the rest of the red drop run, so feel free to carry on watching through if you want to see how I complete the red drop. If not, skip through or check the timestamp in the description for the purple. Now, the purple. So before we get into this, let me just say about the settings that I was trying this on. So like I said for the red, I've been trying to see how little dinos you can do this with. So I had this on PvP mode. I had just perfect tame dinos, so no imprints, no mutations on them or anything, and they all had primitive saddles. So in the end, I tried to counter the fact that they're not imprinted or mutated or anything, and they're just tamed ones. So I upped their melee per level by about 15 to 20%. They still obviously had bad health, so they all had about 18k health and about 450 to 500 melee once they were fully leveled. And I'll be honest with you, with these settings and with these dinos, I came to the conclusion that it can't be done solo. So for my first attempt, I tried it with 2 Gigas and 6 Rexes. Yeah, that didn't go well. So I then tried it with 2 Gigas, 8 Rexes and a force field. I got to wave 4. I got up until the enraged corrupted Rexes started spawning. Then they just destroyed me, but we'll get into them in a second. So I then tried it with 6 Gigas, a mech and a force field, and the same happened. Unfortunately, if you're on a PvP server, you can't just sit on top of the drop and defend it like that, because like we said earlier, you will damage it yourself, and you often do more damage than the corrupt dinos will do to it. So doing this solo and trying to keep all your dinos separated, keep them away from the drop, but also keep them killing the dinos coming to the drop, just felt impossible. And I tried this. No, I mean, I tried this. Don't get me wrong, I think if you had some really good bred gigas with really good saddles, this can be done, definitely. But on gigas of 18k health and prim saddles, it just wasn't happening. They'd quickly get overrun by an enraged Rex, and to be honest, even the Wyverns were nearly killing them. Remember, people also tame bosses to help them with this on Extinction. It's a great way of doing it, but it's a whole different ballgame. So for this clip, I had already accepted defeat, so I put it on PvE mode so that you can see how much easier it is on PvE. So let's talk about the purple in terms of strategies and what you're going to come against. Straight away, even in the starter round, you're going to come up against Wyverns. The Wyverns are going to be high levels and very strong. The Gigas will take them out pretty easily, but I would make sure I try and take them out quick. You're also going to come up against Rock Drakes and Reapers. The Rock Drakes do hit pretty hard, but they don't have a lot of health, so if you can get a couple of Gigas on a Rock Drake, it will take it out almost instantly. The Reapers are a bit more of a pain because they have more health, but again, if you can get a couple of Gigas on it, it takes it out in no time. The biggest issue is when you hit round 4. I think it was round 4, it might have been round 5, I'm pretty sure it was round 4, when the enraged corrupted Rexes spawn. So these guys are super strong, they're going to have over 100k health, they're also going to hit you very hard. So just like the trikes in the red drop, as soon as you see one of these guys, you need to prioritize them. So in this clip, as soon as I saw one, I sent all my Gigas over to kill that quick. This means that the drop's going to be unprotected for a little while, but as long as you've done alright in the previous rounds, it should still have loads of health so that it can take a beating for a little bit. So on this attempt, I seem to have 2 corrupted Rexes spawn. I don't know if one was in one round and one was in the next round, or whether they're both in the same round, but they can spawn more. I had 3 of them when I was trying it on PvP. So if that's the case, I'll keep everything together, send them all into the closest one, try and get that one dealt with quick, and then move them all to the next closest one, and then the furthest away one at the end. If you are doing this on PvE, as soon as your force field goes down, you might as well just sit on top of that drop, because if you have a few gigas there, they'll kill anything in just a few seconds, so they're going to be taking less damage from things. If you do need to do this on PvP, I would really recommend getting a trials mate to help you with it, and also try and find a drop like this one, where they can only come from a couple of angles. One side's completely sheltered by cliff. This makes it a lot easier than if they can come from any angle. You'll quickly learn the busiest paths that the dinos come from in each round, so if there's more than one of you, you can split off, take a group of dinos each, and defend them paths. So again, I'll let the rest of this purple drop run, so that you can watch it if you want to. Apologies that this last clip's only PvE, guys. Like I said, this video was meant to be out a week ago, but I was refusing to admit defeat on this. But in the end, it got the better of me. I do really hope this has helped you out though. If you're new around here and you like these kind of videos, consider subscribing. It's a nice place to be. But for now, this has been how to do orbital supply drops on Extinction solo. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.